everybody, Graham here,
Tannan,
Crystal Street Comics, and we're going to bring you a video today. We're going to, now that it's over and it's kind of had some time to sink in, we're going to talk about the Nolan Batman Trilogy. We're just going to kind of talk back and forth about what we liked, didn't like, and just kind of give you our overall opinions of this trilogy.
Yeah, I was going to try to write a review, and I remembered I had no idea how to write a review strictly for Dark Knight Rises without writing other material for the other two movies leading up to it. Since especially now that it is done, you can take it as one complete project. It wasn't a standalone, here's Batman Begins, and now here is Dark Knight, and here's also Dark Knight Rises. It's I wouldn't say it's to the same for most trilogies. You could say, yeah, this is a good, it's like I can watch Temple of Doom and be fine with just Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
I can watch Last Crusade and be fine with Last Crusade. I don't even have to think of too much content from the other two movies in that trilogy,
Right.
for Last Crusade to still hold up as a phenomenal movie.
Yeah. This plays out more like one big story. I mean, it's a long, you know, it's about what, a 12, 15 year span, something like that. If you take the time from, you know, the second and third have a really clear defined how long it's been. The first and the second are a little more gray,
right,
on how long he's been operating. So, but yeah, it plays as one true story, or even like a 3-act play. Yeah, you know, it's overall connected, but it definitely segmented.
Yes.
So. Let's kind of just start going by movie, just kind of an overall opinion, and let's start with Batman Begins. You know, this was pretty big. I mean, I'm a comic book geek. You know, I geek out for all the comic book movies. You're a little bit more controlled than I tend to be when it comes to this stuff, but Batman's kind of that one that, you know, I feel maybe you didn't geek out, but you were at least really anticipating it.
Yeah. When I saw the first promos for Batman Begin and then the first trailers for Batman Begins, it was one of the few movies where not only was I really looking forward to it, but then I also started getting expectations for it. And coming from, I am a huge Batman fan, so much so that I don't watch Joel Schumacher movies anymore because he ruined them for me.
Yeah.
He killed that franchise for a decade and a half, 2 decades.
Yeah, because let's see here, Batman and Robin. I was in high school when it came out. I remember because I think I got it on VHS for Easter, and yeah, it was a long time. Yeah,
so knowing that there is, and I think it's like, reading all the comics and knowing Batman, knowing there is a great story there, and even Tim Burton did not do it justice.
Yeah, not even.
Not even close.
No.
And then Joel Schumacher comes up and just destroys the thing.
Yeah.
And here's a great character that you could do a really good story. And then Christopher Nolan comes along and actually gives us
the story we deserve.
Batman movie that Batman deserves.
Yeah. You know, I think the problem with the Batmans prior to Nolan is you've got really good actors and really good characters with just shit scripts.
Yeah. Or directors that didn't know what they were doing.
Combined with directors.
Scripts.
Yeah, directors and scripts that did not meet the talent that was in the movies. Because I still have trouble debating that the roles weren't filled properly. I mean, some in Batman and Robin, obviously, you know, Bane was really off, and Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl was just really bad. But the rest of the cast, and Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze,
right?
But the rest of the casting, it's hard to argue that the casting wasn't really good. I mean, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, that made a lot of sense. No. And Nicholson's Joker is still a good Joker,
right?
But the problem is that they're still very campy. They hadn't quite escaped the Adam West feel. They were darker, but they still felt light,
Yeah.
dark and light at the same time, I guess. But so then here comes Batman Begins, and I can't remember where I saw Batman Begins for the first time. Because we were Showplace was done.
It was at Applewood.
Was it Applewood?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I consider, because I was again working at the theater when Batman Begins came out. I'm pretty sure I saw it 6-7 times something
Right.
in theaters, just because again, it's like, it's not only is it Batman, but then it was Batman that was done correctly.
Yeah.
They presented, and to do that, to take a comic book character, especially one that dresses up like a bat,
Right.
and make him a believable character that could exist in your world, is a feat in itself. But then also presenting a script and other characters that are also so believable
Yeah.
in a world, and then so you don't even, seeing Batman show up in the dark is not bizarre anymore.
Right. It felt organic. It felt really like you go through this journey, and it makes sense that he ends up in this fantastic outfit. That you see it in the news every now and again. Some nut job in a superhero costume. It just looks weird, but for Batman, they gave it such a real feel. And then it's like, how's the cape and the cowl going to be pulled off? And it just blended well. You didn't even really notice it. It was accepted.
And everything about his costume was so well orchestrated on why it is there.
Yeah.
And I like that they even went with his early costume and just the balaclava, and and failing when he jumps off the roof.
Yeah.
And it's like, I gotta adapt what I am wearing.
Right.
And so then learning, it's like, okay, it'd be nice to have a parachute or something to keep me from breaking myself.
The growth of the character that eventually leads to the I'm Batman carpool, and he's holding Falcone, and all that stuff that leads to it. It makes you then believe the end product. The end product is so much more believable because of all the steps it took to get to the end product.
Right, and where every other Batman franchise has failed before that is they just kind of assumed, if your parents get murdered in front of you, you are a badass.
Yeah.
You have to be. According to comic books, you are.
Right.
They justified how somebody can turn that into bettering themselves to become a...
Yeah. And it happens so much later, like... If I remember right from the comic books, he starts training a lot younger than he did.
Yes.
In this particular movie, like the vengeance thing came on a lot younger for him, whereas in this one he wanted revenge, but it was always revenge. It wasn't going to be justice. It was going to be him shoot and chill.
Right.
That was the end game, and then Rachel kind of spurs him on, and he goes off on that tangent and starts to become Batman.
Yeah.
Gradually.
Now I would say I would put Batman Begins as one of the best movies, especially for me. But I would still say the part that they failed was they kill off Joe Chill.
Yeah.
And in the Batman comic books, Batman is still Batman because he knows any random crook that he arrests could be the guy that shot his parents.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps his ongoing crusade against the bad element in Gotham going.
In all fairness, I mean, that has changed a few times. They've changed and revised that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, that does lose something when you take Joe Chill out of the picture. But it was just, I don't know, I feel it played really well into kind of, like, I feel that moments when he saw that, this murder revenge isn't what it's supposed to be, and I got to kind of take action that my dad took. My dad took actions all those years ago. I have to take a different kind of action from that point forward.
Right. Now let's just from Batman Begins, all of the comic book movies that have come out since then. It's like you got Iron Man.
Right.
Let's see, 2004.
I mean,
Punisher.
you've Punisher with Thomas Jane, I think was, I'm going to say before. I'm going to say before because I have a poster.
Okay.
And so that means I was in theaters. I don't have a Batman poster.
Okay. So now after Batman with their budget and then the comic book movies that came after it.
Mm-hmm.
Now when they would announce, it's like, yeah, we're doing a comic book movie for this character.
Mm-hmm.
After Batman Begins, I was thinking if they are smart, they're going to go after a Batman Begins Christopher Nolan template.
Right.
Christopher Nolan sit down with David Goyner,
mm-hmm.
Who has been a writer for the cartoon series.
Lots of...
The actual comic book.
Blade.
Yeah.
He's done a lot.
Yeah. Sit down with an actual comic book writer. Yeah. I'm going to direct it. We're going to come up with a script that sticks with, here is a story arc from a graphic novel of Batman.
Right.
We're going to turn this into a movie. It's already written. It's right here. We're going to make a true to the fans comic book movie. And when I hear about any other one, I was like, if they don't do it in the same style that Nolan is, they're trying to fail.
Yeah. And, Nolan just really changed what we thought a comic book movie could be. Because, we had Spider-Man by that point. And, we knew that comic book movies could succeed.
Right.
But Nolan kind of changed that they could not only succeed, but they could really be good movies, good, deep movies, beyond a summer blockbuster.
Right. It's like, the original X-Men that really started the
modern comic
books movies were allowed to be made again.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man came out, but they still always had, especially with the two of them, and they did, I think, better in Spider-Man than X-Men, but they always had a feel of, this is definitely a comic book world.
Right, yeah.
And I would say even Iron Man brought out, it's like, no, if you have the money and the intelligence of Tony Stark, this is not
unfeasible,
all that far-fetched.
Right. And, we're getting off on a big tangent here, but, credit, they have then since even gone to fantastic characters like Thor, and have still brought that into a sense of reality, which I was really impressed with, because that's a character I thought would never be able to be grounded in reality. And really, it's what Nolan set up with Batman, is that you can ground these in reality, and it can still be a fantastic comic book movie.
Right. It's when you start realizing, I think it's when you get complacent. It's like, it's a comic book, so we can really we can get away with anything. We can put whatever characters we want. And I think Christopher Nolan, for the Batman trilogy, is Batman has some villains that just shouldn't be there. He doesn't have many. Most of his villains are correct, but they did not do the Penguin. Now, you could have figured out how to make that work.
Yeah.
But they steered clear of it.
Yeah.
Because trying to justify.
And, I applaud Nolan. For the most part, it was villains we hadn't seen before. Obviously, the second one brings back a familiar villain. But for the most part, it was villains that hadn't been seen in film. And so I'm glad he didn't go back and try and necessarily fix any of the other ones that had been done before. Obviously, with the exception of Bane in the last one. But Bane, to me, in Batman and Robin, is just such a throwaway of a character that it hardly counts that he was even in there.
But you'll take Batman Begins. The villains in Batman Begins.
Yeah,
you got Ra's al Ghul. He's a human.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a mask. He's just some guy.
Yeah.
And then you got Falcone.
And don't forget Scarecrow.
Okay. Scarecrow is the one exception, but you're sticking with pretty much the two main villains.
Yeah, or just crime lords, essentially.
Crime bosses.
Right. And I was a little hesitant with... Now, Raish, I'm going to go a little bit into casting here. I remember, because I'm one of those guys that goes on the internet, and I'm like, what's the newest... that's why we have a webcomic. I remember casting announcements for the movie, and I saw Ken Watanabe listed as Ra's al Ghul. And I remember thinking, that's not bad. He was good in The Last Samurai.
Right.
And, Ra's is supposed to be kind of Middle Eastern, Asian-esque, I guess you could go with, but it was still a really weird casting for me. And I was like, well, maybe it'll work. We'll see. And then I saw Liam Neeson cast as a character they were just calling Deckard at the time. I'm like, okay, well, Liam Neeson's in it. That'll make pretty good. And when you go through that movie, going kind of back to the story, and you get that final payoff, and I don't know what it is about these Batman movies that makes me stupid. But it's like I can't see these really obvious things. Liam Neeson has the goatee, has the little hanging thing coming off his goatee. Looks like what I know Ra's al Ghul to look like. And yet I'm still, when it's revealed that he was Ra's for the first time, I'm like, oh shit, of course that's Ra's al Ghul. That makes total sense now. And it was such a funny payoff, because it's like I didn't see that coming. And, again, credit, to them, is that I kind of forgot a lot of the Batman story, and I kind of let Nolan tell his own story. And because, I just want to throw this on here just because it recently happened. I called you on this. Watching the courtroom scene back, the very first courtroom scene when you meet Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow, and he's defending Victor Zsasz. And I didn't even realize that, he's the throwaway character. He's barely in it. You see him again towards the end in the slums. But, they don't talk about who Victor Zsasz is, the fact that he is actually a major Batman villain.
Yeah.
And just that he was in there was such a cool little touch that, again, I wasn't paying attention until recently, apparently, that they threw in there. And again, just grounding it in reality. These characters are there. These are real people. They're all around. They don't just come out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah, and, oh, shit. Had something I was going to say.
Well, let's keep with casting for a minute then, and let's talk about the heroes or the good guys in this particular case. Christian Bale, of course, is it's going to be hard when they go, if they go, when they remake, when they reboot.
I remember thinking when they cast Christian Bale, it's like the guy from American Psycho.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
And now it's just that's going to be a hard thing to separate now.
Yeah.
That's because he is the first of the actors to ever play Batman on screen, I feel, that had Batman and Bruce Wayne nailed.
Yeah.
With all the others, I felt they could get one or the other. Michael Keaton kind of got both pretty well, but not as good as Christian Bale did.
Yeah.
He was so strong in both roles. Both the Batman as his main character and the Mask Bruce Wayne. He played him so well throughout them all. It was just such a great knockout casting from, again, something you don't see coming in a Christian Bale, because at the time, who knew what? Again, he had such small parts at that point. It's like, that's kind of bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, now I would say they kind of dropped the ball with Katie Holmes. And then they dropped the ball again with...
with Gyllenhaal. Definitely the weakest parts of the trilogy, and almost in whole, it is those two female roles in the first and second. Luckily, the female in third, when we'll talk about her in a little bit, was so much stronger and so much better.
Yeah.
And the other casting, two more castings I have to talk about, starting from Begins, is Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. I remember the first time they released a picture of him in the trench coat with the mustache, a skinny guy wearing glasses, and I was just like, fucking finally.
Yes.
It's a Gordon that looks like Gordon.
Yeah, and he actually came to his casting call with the mustache, the glasses, the trench coat.
Yeah.
They told him you don't have to wear the mustache. He goes, but Commissioner Gordon does.
Yeah. Because in every other iteration you had the really fat and kind of stupid Commissioner Gordon, and to finally get a Gordon that was worth the payoff was very rewarding, and I was very happy to see that brought in. The last casting I have to talk about is Michael Caine as Alfred. And Alfred's one of those roles that from the first movies it's hard to deny that the original actor wasn't a good Alfred.
Right.
But he was a different kind of Alfred.
Yeah.
And Michael Caine just took the role way up.
Yeah. He turned Alfred into the character that Alfred has been. I don't think even from the beginning, but Alfred has been that former SAS badass in his younger years that is now the guardian of young Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And you can understand why somebody with money wants this guy as the guy
taking care of everything.
Taking care of their kid.
Yeah.
And especially through Dark Knight, when he is mentioning in his younger years how to deal with somebody like the Joker.
Yeah.
That was Alfred. And they even toyed with that in the old 70s series when Alfred would dress up as Batman.
Yeah.
He could get away with doing it.
Yeah.
And they kind of fell away from that.
Yeah, and went to the more the subservient Alfred.
Just went with the older guy that cooks and cleans.
Yeah. But no, and so the casting on top of this great story just gave us such a great first movie. Great, one of the better origin movies that's out there by and far, because an origin movie can be boring. It can be very boring.
Right.
You're explaining shit so much
but I think what saved them is there was never a good origin movie Batman.
Yeah.
And especially in Tim Burton's Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin, they have flashbacks in all four of those movies to his parents getting murdered.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's their explanation.
And they never cut back to it again, do they? In the newer movies, do they ever actually go back?
They never cut back to it. They cut back to the picture in the rubble of and the father putting a stethoscope up to him.
But that's still the end of Begins.
Yeah,
but they never, like in Returns or Dark Knight Rises, they never reference back to his parents being killed.
I don't believe so.
That's I just realized that. That's actually really good.
Credit to them. It's like we told the story good enough once.
Yeah, you don't need to hear it again.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the new Superman's coming out, but how many fucking times do we need to see Clark Kent crash in Kansas and get raised by the Kents? We kind of know the story.
Probably at least 4 more.
Please don't fuck that up, Zack Snyder. Okay, so that's kind of the first. That Begins. I think.
And, well, you forgot about Fox.
Oh shit! Oh fuck! How did I forget about Lucius Fox?
Yeah.
I mean, Morgan Freeman already brings something more. He's one of those actors I like to refer to as a percentage actor. He's going to make your movie that much better just because he's in the cast.
Yeah.
And the role of Lucius Fox, while different from the animated series Lucius Fox, who's kind of in the dark on Batman. You know, this Lucius, he knows, but still just such a great character.
Yeah.
And it's so... It's great that he is in the entire trilogy and just brings something to that role.
Yeah,
you're glad he's there, and it's a logical explanation for where his tech comes from. Right.
And I will. I'm gonna mention this when we get to Dark Knight Rises. It is difficult because Nolan was creating a world that does exist or can exist, and all of these characters make sense in the world that he made, which is not necessarily Batman from the comic book. It's not Batman from the animated series.
No,
but it is more of a earthbound story of how Batman can exist, and in that. Yeah, you have Lucius Fox that pretty much knows right off the bat. Yeah. But Batman, even with all his money, still needs people to build him a Batmobile. Yeah. Still needs people to build his gadgets. Until he gets to the knowledge of knowing how to do it. Even in the comic books, he had...
he's got his mechanic, I forget his name.
The mute.
Yeah, the mute mechanic.
That gets killed by Hush.
Yeah.
But he still has people that knows who he is.
Yeah.
Now, for it to be a realistic world, and Nolan did this, there were more people that ended up knowing who Batman is. And that's hard to get stuff done without a few people.
Yeah. Batman couldn't exist on his own. And wouldn't exist on his own. He'd have to have that support corps. And Lucius Fox is kind of that really gives it that this could be real.
Yeah,
because he's got the inventor, he's got his weapons supplier.
Right. I mean, you go with Lucius Fox, who's just tinkering around. It's like, this would be fun to make.
Yeah.
But you compare that with, let's say, Batman Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Keaton as Batman, got a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
How does he know how to make a jet?
Or
he makes a jet.
The homing batarang.
Right. Where's this stuff coming from? Who is making this stuff?
Yeah.
And the comic books have already mentioned that Batman is a super intelligent guy.
Right.
But if you're going out every night for 8 hours fighting crime, when you got time to make that shit?
Right. No, and the Lucius Fox edition. I can't believe I almost forgot about Lucius Fox.
I mean,
is such a big addition to those movies. And again, just such a solid origin. And so then comes anticipation. Batman Begins is so fantastic, and now we're sitting and we're waiting. It's what, a 3-year, 4-year gap between the two movies, something like that. And then we start to get the casting rumors. They set up that it was going to be the Joker. You kind of knew that was coming for the sequel. They that's the one thing they kind of set up at the end of the first. So it's now the biggest casting of the second one. Who do you cast for the Joker?
I don't know a single person that said that was a good idea.
No,
first time they heard it.
I know I didn't. I was like, 10 things I hate about you guys? First night? Really? This is going to be...
Right, yeah.
This is going to be the Joker? That seems really weird. And, I was not sold. And then the teaser trailer came out. The trailer that had no footage.
Yep.
It was just a blue bat on fire. And you hear him laugh. And I was like... It chilled me. I was like, wow, it's like Mark Hamill's laugh, but gone way crazier.
Yeah, a little bit more psychotic.
And so I was at that point. Then it was like I was full bought into, let's do this, let's get this movie out. And of course, what we got was The Dark Knight Rises. No, Dark Knight.
No.
Dark Knight, just The Dark Knight. Dark Knight. Stupid, 2 movies, similar titles. The Dark Knight. So we got The Dark Knight, and right off the bat, the bank robbery.
Yeah, I mean, just...
they don't. That movie does not let you sit down.
No,
you go, bam, and that's the great thing about sequels, and it's always kind of the is it going to be too much or not enough? Because you don't have to tell origin anymore. You are done with juxtaposition. It's just now story for story's sake.
Yep.
And so you get this robbery, and you get the guy sliding down, and then the one guy kills the alarm, and that guy then kills him. And then and you get that whole chain, and you're just like, you're waiting for something, that big reveal, and then Joker pulls off his mask, and you get that look at Heath Ledger for the, you'd seen him in the trailers, but that first reveal of him in IMAX. Yeah, just is so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely justifiable that he got the Oscar for that, because it was, and I would say, if I tried to rank all 3 movies, I have to put 2 up front. It's a lot of the story.
Yeah,
but then it's also Heath Ledger brought. It's kind of like what you say about. Lucius Fox,
the Alfred Millie, or the
Lucius Fox, the character,
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman, Morgan Freeman brings something else to your movie.
Yeah,
Heath Ledger brought that movie where it could have been just fine, having somebody else play the Joker.
Yeah,
but the way Heath Ledger played the Joker, turned it into its own character.
Yeah,
and saying people have Jack Nicholson,
right.
That was the penultimate Batman or Joker, leading up to anything before that, and really anything after that. That's what we got to go off of. Or Mark Hamill, just for his voice.
And on a quick tangent, the one thing about the role of the Joker is it's never been played bad.
Yeah, that's true.
They were all played right for their time. Even going back to Cesar Romero in the Adam West series was a perfect Joker for that era.
Yeah.
Then Nicholson's Joker was a perfect Joker for the 80s. Mark Hamill's, had the 90s, and when he did the animated series and video games and countless other times he voiced the Joker. they were all perfect for their time, and then, but Heath just did something else with this role.
Heath made the character, because the Joker is one of the characters that here's just a crazy guy in makeup.
Yeah.
Heath made him where you never even questioned why this guy is wearing makeup, because he came across from the beginning as here's a guy who's a psychopath for the sheer purpose of being a homicidal maniac.
Right.
That's his goal in life. That's what he wants to do. That makes him happy.
Yeah, and every scene he is in, you're paying attention.
Yeah.
There isn't a moment you are not focusing on that screen if Heath Ledger is in it.
Yeah.
Because you have, the first scene when you get him, is you see his brilliance in this bank robbery. And then the second scene you see him is when he's intimidating all the mobsters down in the kitchen, and you really see him just how fucking nuts he is. And the pencil gag is, and that whole bit of dialogue is just so good. And the TV's playing, just everything about the way he did it, it was amazing. I mean, there's no other way to put it. That was an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And again, the nice thing is, on top of Heath Ledger just coming in and taking it to a whole nother level, you still had Christian Bale, you still had Michael Caine, you still had Morgan Freeman, you still had Gary Oldman.
Now you had Aaron Eckhart.
And Aaron Eckhart.
Really?
It's underrated. I think he gets a little too much flack. I think when people talk about The Dark Knight, they say Two-Face is the worst part of that movie. I think is the general kind of consensus you get when you talk about what's wrong with The Dark Knight. They say, and
I'd say Maggie Gyllenhaal, but
Maggie Gyllenhaal. But I will admit he felt a little pigeonholed in there when they finally got Two-Face in there. It was such a short time.
Yeah,
you had Two-Face, but at the same time, because of going for the more realistic feel, and what Two-Face is a traumatized. I mean, he's in severe pain. He's not walking around fine.
Right. He's
in tremendous pain. And so you can't have that character in the movie for very long.
No, I mean, and I thought they did, because it's like in the comic books, it was, here's a guy that got so messed up on the left side of his body, and his brain's messed up that he can't make decisions anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They actually wrote it in where I thought they wrote in the coin perfectly.
Right. Yep.
They turned Two-Face's character, and it was one of them that's like, I hate seeing comic book villains die at the end of movies, because they just don't in comic books.
Yeah.
DC comic books, at least major villains, you keep them alive.
Yeah.
You might want to use them later. He was one that in Nolan's universe, it's understandable.
It was almost inevitable that he'd be dead. It was amazing that he was still alive.
Right.
And so the fact that he died was not overly shocking. It was a character.
Yeah, but I also think how they dealt with his death and how that movie wrapped up. How the movie wraps up, and Gary Oldman's speech to his son about what makes Batman a good hero as opposed to
what
a good person, maybe. It was that ending is still, it's the best ending of the three movies.
Yeah.
Because that finally showed you this is who Batman is.
Right. So that brings us to Rise, which I almost wish I had gotten a second chance to watch Rise before we did this, just because I need a second sink in of it, because as Tannan knows, and maybe if you read my review you kind of got it out of it, is that I wasn't entirely sold on Rise as I was on The Dark Knight. I think if I were to rank the movies right now, I would rank Dark Knight, Batman Begins, and Rise in the order of my liking of them. Now, I want to again say, don't get me wrong, they're all fucking great movies.
I think a lot of people would agree with you, though.
Yeah. There's just some stuff that bugs me in Rise. And
okay.
Let me go ahead and ramble for a little bit.
All right.
And you helped me get through part of it a little bit later, and which is why I wish I could watch it again before we had done this. The fact that Batman takes 8 years off bugs me.
Right.
Because Batman in the comic books would not do that.
Right.
He might have the cops chasing him every night, but Batman would not take 8 years off.
You want to do a counterpoint?
Go for it.
Go ahead and
counterpoint that right away, because you counterpointed it for me already and kind of regrounded me in it. Right. So go ahead.
So even from Christopher Nolan's Batman universe, Batman comes to Gotham to clean up Gotham. That is his goal. His end game is not, I'm going to be a vigilante for the rest of my life.
Right.
It's not the comic book Batman. It's not, no, this world needs me. I'm going to stick around and do this until I can't do it anymore.
Right.
Christopher Nolan's is, show up. It needs cleaned up. He gets that done by the end of Dark Knight.
Right.
So Batman, from all of the purposes that that Bruce Wayne put on himself, is no longer needed.
Right.
Why go out there and being a symbol of dark justice isn't needed.
Right.
Cops are figuring it out on their own now.
Right.
Because of the laws put in place from Harvey Dent's death.
Right.
They're figuring it out. He is not needed. So why even put himself out there? Go ahead and I'm going to sit back and enjoy my money.
Right.
And
but that's the thing too. It's not even like he doesn't reach that ultimate point of retirement either during all of this. He's just kind of in this limbo state that I didn't.
Yeah, well, okay, I will agree with you there. It's like I did not like, because they allude to the fact that 8 years earlier he got injured to some point and having a hard time getting around.
Right.
So I think even still in Christopher Nolan's universe, you have I can rehabilitate myself and get back out there, or and I did still like that he wasn't doing it, because I think mentally he knew he didn't have to, but he still had that desire to do it, which was put him in the limbo. It's like, if I go back out there, I'm just confusing my purposes.
Yeah.
It's like I don't need to be doing it anymore. I just want to do it more.
Right.
And he even had that conversation with Alfred in the first movie.
Yeah.
So he wasn't doing it for thrills.
Right. He was doing it for a purpose.
I mean, I think that's why he is in that limbo, is he has defined himself for the last, it was like give or take 6 years from Begins to the end of Dark Knight.
Right.
Dedicated himself to just being Batman.
Right.
Bruce Wayne is just some guy. So then trying to figure out who he is without Batman puts you in, that's somebody retiring after they work for 60 years. So now they got to figure out what they're going to do with their life.
Right.
And that's, so I don't, it's like, it's not Batman, it's not the comic book Batman.
Right.
It is definitely Christopher Nolan's Batman.
And that's where I had to come to the realization, is that I had to realize this is not the comic book Batman in almost any way. While the origin is there and it's still a guy in a bat suit, and this is still Christopher Nolan's take on it, and I'm usually pretty good about separating the two. I can usually take an interpretation for what it is. Right. But for whatever reason, that one element of Batman, because I just associate Batman as, I do not quit, I am better than you. And that 8-year break just didn't fit into the I am better than you Batman.
Right, but now I would say that now I agree, and that's what I like Batman in the comic books so much. He essentially just wills himself to be better than everything out there. Right. But in the comic book, you also have to realize that he is no longer fighting his street level thugs. Right. He's part of the Justice League, and now it's like, here's Darkseid, go deal with that, Batman. Yeah. He has other things on his plate where this Christopher Nolan universe, you take some guy, and Christopher Nolan wanted to give you a character that you are going to believe, and I think if Christopher Nolan tried to figure out, okay, this is the guy that I wrote to make a believable Batman. Right. So I have to give a believable Batman a goal. Right. If believable Batman succeeds at that goal, how do I justifiably leave him in this world that I created for him as Batman? Right. He just won. why is he still there?
Right.
And I don't think it was so much Batman weakness, it was Batman won.
Right.
So it wasn't even I gave up, and I won.
I won the fight, and so I don't need to do anything anymore.
Right.
And again, I really need that second watch now.
Yeah.
To kind of let some of the other subtleties set in. Let's talk about the new. We'll talk about the beginning again, because I'll tell you what, the second and the third movies begin such a high note.
Yeah.
Because you've got the plane scene in the
right,
third one.
Yeah.
And you introduce Bane, and you realize this guy is as smart as the Joker with more control.
Yeah, and I was, especially after Batman and Robin, when they just destroyed Bane.
Yeah.
Because I remember reading when I was 13-ish, when the Breaking of the Bat came out, and Bane was an intelligent brute of a bad guy.
Yeah.
He could go toe-to-toe with Batman and beat him in a fight, but he also had the intelligence to take over the entire gangs of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
So when they were saying they're bringing back Bane, I was like, I hope they do him correctly. And again, Christopher Nolan has yet to really disappoint me.
Yeah,
with,
and it was another one coming out. It's like Tom Hardy.
Trying to figure out
how that was going to look, and how are you going to handle Venom? Is Venom even going to come into play?
Right.
How do you do this character that is a little superhuman? You know, he's the most fantastic stretch, you know, Nolan does in any of these. You know, even when you think about the Scarecrow, there's a believability in that powder could exist.
Right.
You know, Bane, in the comic book essence of Bane, he gets pumped up on the super steroids that would look weird in Nolan's universe.
Yeah.
And I think they do a fair job explaining, his mask delivers all the pain medications and stuff, so he doesn't feel anything. And I think they did a good job of that. And fuck, did Tom Hardy get ripped for that movie? Oh my god, that dude was fucking massive.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, and again, that's one of the things where nobody in any of those movies, it seemed like they phoned in their performance, other than Katie Holmes and Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
Which is what makes them stand out. I think in any other movie, they would have looked like they belonged there.
Yeah.
In these movies, you had everybody dedicating so much to their roles that, and when Tom Hardy, who was just slightly bigger than me, gets huge. I mean, he's massive.
He's fucking really fucking big in that movie.
Yeah.
I remember Chris Hemsworth when I saw him in Star Trek, and then when I saw him in Thor, I thought that dude got really big for that movie.
Yeah.
Nothing compared
to it.
To Tom Hardy and how big he is in that movie. And his presence, he captured Bane's presence so well, because he is fucking terrifying. When he's beating the shit out of Batman without an effort, he's terrifying in that scene.
And really just his mannerisms, the way, I mean, in his fur coat, just standing there, you could always tell that, when he is in this room, he has control.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, it's really subtle acting on Tom Hardy's...
And did it without facial expressions, too. That's tough to do.
Yeah, you could be a scary guy and you can't smile, you can't frown, you can't do anything, and you can still be a scary guy.
Yeah, and so that was really well done. And then, of course, the other casting addition we have to talk about is... Well, there's several more I guess we got to talk about in Dark Knight Rises, but the other major one is Anne Hathaway.
So scared about that, too. I was so scared.
I was never scared about her. She never scared me. That costume scared the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, it was. Now I will say that I was actually a little concerned about Anne Hathaway.
Were you
playing? And I shouldn't have been, because to date everybody has, brought their game. But again, she was a female in a Christopher Nolan Batman, and both of them had disappointed me so much before that. Anne Hathaway didn't. She was a complete surprise. Well, it wasn't, because in all of her, outside the Disney movies,
she's good.
Her acting is solid. But so this, it was still a surprise on how well and how believable. I like, because Catwoman is not I also like that they never referred to her as
Catwoman. Yeah, they never actually call her Catwoman.
They avoided that.
Yeah.
She didn't need the whip, and I've heard people bitch that she doesn't have a whip. Catwoman has not always carried a whip.
Yeah, and it wasn't needed in this particular movie.
It wasn't a necessity.
I still will argue that her hair should not have been hanging out. I just... she's a master thief. When she's breaking into Batman's house, she's not wearing any kind of gloves. She's not wearing any kind of...
right.
Nothing. She comes off a little unthiefish in some aspects, but she carries the character very well, plays it perfectly. You always get that sense that she's going to be good. A perfect Selena Kyle. She wants to be good, but it's so much easier for her to be bad.
Yeah.
And so it's so hard for her to change her ways. And again, she was just wonderful the entire movie.
Yeah. And she impressed me with the fighting, and that was another concern I had, is trying to get a the female lead to play Catwoman and to be able to handle the type of fighting that Catwoman does.
Right.
And I was impressed with that as well.
Very pleasantly surprised. And again, the costume concern that I had almost went away. It went away really fast watching that movie.
Yeah.
Again, visually...
It was really just stills of it.
Yeah, stills of it did not look good, and it's still just visually, because I'm so used to Catwoman now with the head and with the big goggles.
Right.
It's just such a look for me that to go back to kind of a 70s Batman look. But the bodysuit looked much better in the movie than it did in the stills.
That's true. Yeah.
It looked more like Catwoman's body. It looked like Catwoman's bodysuit. It was just missing the cowl.
Yeah.
And so I very, very quickly dropped that concern that I had on the website a while back. If you go click through the main pages a while back, there was a little bit of a concern on my part regarding the costume.
Pretty sure there's a whole comic book regarding that costume.
Yeah, there was. Let's see here. Casting wise, we got to talk about Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And maybe getting a little ahead of myself here, but this is the other major problem I have with this movie. If you haven't seen it yet, for some reason, turn it off now. I'm about to give some big spoilers. Joseph Gordon-Levitt ends up being Robin, and they set him up really well. Like, I caught on to that almost instantly, that they were going to set him up to be Robin, to be the apprentice to Batman. Right. And that's almost apparent right away, because he almost has the Tim Drake story origin. Yeah. He walks into Alfred and he says, "I know who your boss is. He needs to get off his ass." And so I thought, oh man, this is really cool. They're setting this up. And throughout the whole thing, they play it that he's he's assisting Batman the entire time, helps him up. Batman keeps kind of giving him advice.
Right.
Hey, if you're going to do this, you need to be protecting yourself, protect your identity. And then the ending, which we'll go into a little bit more detail of later, because it's really good. Every other part of the ending is really good, except for this one element to me, because everything else wraps up.
Yes.
Everything else is finished. And actually, by the end of the movie, the way it ends, I had almost, like, the 8 years he took off didn't bug me, because now I can accept this is Christopher Nolan's Batman. It's not the comic book Batman, and this Batman can walk away. Right. At the end of the day, he can leave Gotham without the guilt. He doesn't have any of that left, and he can go live finally. And I was okay with that. And they wrapped everything else into this nice little bubble. And then here's this Gordon-Levitt thing. And they finally reveal that he's Robin. His legal name is Robin. Somewhere in there.
Right.
They don't really say where, if it's his first name or his last name or what. But and again, I thought that was kind of weird. Why not reveal his name as Tim Drake or Dick Grayson or Jason Todd even? Why not reveal that he's one of those three? Why go for the obvious "my name is Robin" thing?
Right.
That kind of was weird. And then they have him swing into the Batcave, and the platform rises, and you get this sense that, and then it ends, and that's where they end it. They have Batman retired off somewhere else, and they've left this thing of, well, what's he do? Does he now become Batman? Does he become Robin or Nightwing, or they left this one chunk out there of unfinished business. And that's the other aspect of this movie that bugged me. And again, I know it's such a nitpick. It is such a nitpick, but it's just like, Nolan says this is the last one I'm doing. Mm-hmm. They all say this is the end of my story. If you're going to end your story, end it. Do not leave something hanging out there.
Well, you saw Inception, right?
Actually, no, I haven't. But
okay.
But did Nolan say he's not ever coming back to the Inception universe?
I doubt he will. It's not really leading up for a sequel.
But the problem is this one element leads you to sequel. It is the Joker card at the end of Begins.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Rebuttal.
Now I'm gonna agree completely. I think Gordon-Levitt should have, at the end, when he's in the train station, wherever he is, when he's getting his bag, they say, yeah, we don't have a record of that name. He said, try my legal name. And if he said Tim Drake, that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Now, some people have complained that he's too old to be Robin.
That didn't bother me.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and I would just say, yeah, given the universe, why would Bruce Wayne pick up a 10-year-old and pretty much,
thrust him into his
adopt a 10-year-old
style.
To start having a 10-year-old fight crime?
Yeah.
That's just wrong.
It made more sense for it to be an older, I want to be trained kind of an apprentice.
Yeah. Now, as far as just the straight ending, I wouldn't even say the way Christopher Nolan ended it is, yes, this is the end of my Batman trilogy. I'm done telling the story.
Right.
But he can end it that way without saying it's not the end of Batman's story. It's just the end of... it's like, my story, I'm done.
Right.
I'm done. In theory, Batman is done.
Right.
So I think he was able to wrap it up the way he did. Batman is retired.
Right.
Here's some guy that could take up the mantle.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wants to take up the mantle.
Right.
Either be Batman or some other... show up as a Robin or something. But Christopher Nolan wrapped it up as like, yeah, here's a guy that has a purpose and a goal. Works to get to that purpose and goal. Succeeds, completing that purpose and goal. Shows up and then passes off his ideas, his training to somebody else if they want to pick it up.
Right.
So it does kind of feel like it is leading itself to a sequel, but it's also, I mean, wait, did you say you've seen Casablanca?
No, I haven't seen Casablanca.
I mean, it's essentially saying for Fight Club ends with the all the buildings getting destroyed and say you met me at a strange time in my life.
Right.
All right, but you're not expecting the movie of Jack now. All right, well, what does Jack do after he controls an army?
But but the problem is, Jack was the main character the entire time, and that still felt closed at that point. I mean, something's going to happen to Jack after that point, but at the same time, it's, I guess because it's a universe that doesn't have a mythos to it already.
Right.
You don't really care. There's a mythos to Robin. There's a mythos to the training successions. There's a mythos to the way that Batman worked his apprentices. And to just leave that out there with, very minimal pay into it and nothing to pay out on.
Okay, alright. So I would say from Nolan's standpoint, it was, no, I'm done. I told my Batman story. I wouldn't mind if somebody could pick this up and do it as well as I am doing it.
Right.
I'm not gonna write off. I didn't kill off Batman.
Right.
He's still there. And I am allowing somebody, they can pick it up here. My Batman story is done, and I did wrap up. He did wrap up.
And Batman's story is done.
But he allowed for story to pick up from where he left off.
And that's I get that to an extent, but at the same time, I feel that binds the next guy's hands in a way too. Because if he, at this point you kind of feel they have to reboot Batman. You kind of
no.
because you can't. It's hard to justify why does Batman then come back? Like you said, he succeeded. Gotham is essentially safe, and he has walked away from Batman at this point. So why does he come back?
Oh, no, that's an easy storyline. I could whip that up in a day. I'm just lying. I can't. I have a premise.
Right.
If they did do it was essentially a Batman 4,
right,
or in the same universe,
mm-hmm.
Batman 4, you can avoid put it 3 years later,
mm-hmm.
and here's Batman
mm-hmm.
in Gotham. He just popped up again.
Right.
3 years after he saved Gotham, disappeared. 3 years, here's Batman.
Right.
It's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Right.
Is Batman.
Right.
And then you have, all right. So Batman is pretty much doing what Batman did for the first 40 years that Batman existed, taking
right.
care of
street
people robbing banks,
right, street level crime, and stuff like that.
Helping out with the cops.
Right.
And then you get. Let's say it's off the top of my head. You get the Riddler's Hush Saga going on,
right?
Or some villain that pops up that is again terrorizing Gotham,
right?
And then you get Bruce Wayne that comes back
mm-hmm.
and talks to Tim Drake,
right?
And say, yeah, I'm taking back
right.
my mantle. You can be.
Right.
Here's your boy shorts. Put these on. Here's your stick.
With them going as old, if they do that, and that's what I thought too. I understand that it can lead into sequels. I just felt that
like it was forcing a sequel.
Yeah, I felt it forced a sequel that was unnecessary, because again, somebody else could have taken these lines anyways. Could have brought Batman back for whatever reason out of that retirement. But now you kind of shoehorned in this Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
Has to be your Robin. Has to be your Batman apprentice.
Yeah.
And that's just, I feel that's, again, if you just leave Batman out in Europe sipping tea and everything else kind of wrapped up, that's fine. It ends well. I just feel it's that one loose end that they're going to have to address if they do a sequel. Whereas if you don't have that Gordon-Levitt thing, you kind of can do what you want with the sequel. You can bring Batman back. Again, same way you're talking about. Some new villain is just absolutely terrorizing Gotham, and Bruce can't sit on the beach anymore.
Right.
Because he realizes, hey, I'm the only one who can go in and stop this guy. But now with the Gordon-Levitt thing, again, I just think that it's an unnecessary element that you add into the sequel that doesn't necessarily need to be there. I mean, it saves you some time from telling the Robin story.
Yeah.
I suppose when you go into the sequel, you don't necessarily have to tell the Robin origin at that point. But again, I felt it was a little shoehorned. But again, those are my biggest complaints about what is now my second favorite trilogy of movies out there. I mean, it's still Star Wars for me.
Yeah.
First, but this is probably my second favorite trilogy.
Mine's the Aladdin trilogy.
Oh, that's a good trilogy. Again, overall, I think we hit a lot of the points we kind of wanted to talk about in this. Is there anything in closing that you think we should hit on about these that we didn't discuss?
No, I'm sure it'll come to me after we're done.
Oh, yeah. Oh, one more. My stupidity kicked in Batman Rises again with Talia.
Oh, yeah.
How did I not fucking see that the entire... They're setting up Raish's kid. I know Raish has a daughter named Talia. I know she is a fairly attractive Middle Eastern woman. They introduced this new fairly attractive Middle Eastern woman into the story who seems to have no place.
And keep littering Raish's backstory stuff.
Yeah.
With Bane's backstory.
And I'm thinking, so they're going to make Bane his son? That doesn't make any sense. Bane was never his son. He had that cowboy son, but, what the fuck is this? And then they fucking reveal Talia, and I'm just like, I'm dumb. So... But again, in closing, for me, again, this is such a great trilogy of movies. Not blockbuster entertaining movies, but movies, they'll become a once a year trilogy for me. Yeah.
and we mentioned this. It's like because the Avengers came out the same year as Batman or Dark Knight Rises, and I think we both agree that Dark Knight Rises is the better of the two movies.
Yes.
Whereas Avengers is a more watchable
and entertaining
movie. But when you put them together, Batman, the entire trilogy, is just on a completely other level of comic book movies.
Yeah,
it's not. I don't even consider them comic book movies anymore because the writing is that much better.
They are true. They're epic. They feel epic. The story and the plot and the acting and everything is there in these. Nothing is cheesy. Nothing is put in there just to be in there. Everything is calculated, and it feels like a perfect trilogy, which is again why now it's Star Wars, Batman, and then Lord of the Rings for me. It's
really beat out Lord of the Rings.
Oh, by and far, I'd watch these before Lord of the Rings. Never mind. Don't get me wrong. I love the Lord of the Rings. Got all 3 extended editions. Don't go nerd raging on me, people. But I think this is a better trilogy than the Lord of the Rings because we're not walking through the forest for 9 hours.
Well, that's true. There are no hobbits in this.
So yeah, no, the Batman trilogy, fantastic. And if you haven't seen it, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen it now, I mean, you can just wait for the Blu-ray, buy all 3, watch them back to back.
Yeah,
to back.
And you will get a full story.
Yeah, it won't be time wasted.
No, not at all. So, Crystal Street Comics. That's our Batman summary.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, summary is a
summary and review.
Yeah.
So I never reviewed Dark Knight, so I'm going to review the whole Batman trilogy right now. That would be like Mahi Mahi plus Toast and the Butterfly.
Throw some halibut on there too, though, because it's tasty.
Well, you want do stuffed halibut, Mahi Mahi.
That's how good these movies are. Later, everybody.